mistakes now, you're on steroids.
Yeah, oh yeah. What we're going to do with take your suggestions and playbacks
at 931 100.7 is the regular people line, and the fax line is.
I believe anything.
Next regular phone number now, 931 100.7. The Alex Classic Cafe.
How you doing?
How you doing?
This is Tony. Tony Terranova from Natick.
Tony who?
Terranova from Natick.
Tony Terranova.
Yeah, Natick.
How you doing, man?
Oh, hey, listen. You know, I've been asking to play this song. And today I'm getting a new guitar. I'm trading it.
Hey, I see you put extra blocks underneath after we left.
It's very inconvenient for non-smokers. Oh yeah.
You heard what we did to your boss, don't you? We conned him into speaking at the dinner.
Oh yeah. He loves that.
Yeah. Oh, he's kind of thrilled over it.
Oh, is that right?
He was all for it. We didn't have to con him. He was willing to do it.
Says a few words.
Yeah, that's good. Oh yeah, well somebody mentioned it, but that's fine.
In between, he's sort of small.
Yeah.
And you sort of have a document saying that this is the same brand the wall in Washington and Florida. We're trying to get it in the book. He's going to give me the paperwork for this road. So right after that, then
Putting sound. What the music's going on. We just listened to the tape. We got the right segment. It's 5 minutes long of instrumental. You know that samba music that's in the background.
Andy's got the patch roll.
Andy finally got the patch.
Andy's all up in there because they put the pressure.
Yeah, he says to make up the name.
That's all right.
Yeah,
my girlfriend says.
that's what she said, yeah.
She should get one for Benny too. For Benny, all right, okay, all right. This is for Maureen Martin and Bob Martin, okay. Yeah. Okay, Rich Casey. Yeah.
Well, she's going to start on the top. She's going to, you know.
Yeah, I'm there Thursday. I should be there around 3:30. What, you want me to go down? Okay. Yeah, that way it's the water running around. Yeah, I know. Nice to get it over with. Not get it, it'll be
Some of them might not even stand
like an impact will last after this time. The other day,
fish scraps. Two scraps. It's a real long one.
great. See yourself. And they were saying, like, if it's raining, marble makes it like teardrops. Oh, it's really? Aura, you know. It's very strong. I didn't. Yeah. again, the picture.
You know, the lettering we use on this side is different from lettering.
Yeah.
That's good. No, it should be, but I didn't think of that. That's good.
Wow,
Breaks
that's
out
a
everything.
professional. Yeah, well, that's.
Yeah.
I talked to
Did you get the thing?
Dottie. I got
You
it all set. I didn't bring it down.
Oh.
So, well, you want me to bring it? I gave one to Benny and I left him at home. Oh, I'm sorry. You know, I should have.
You didn't pick all of them up.
No, I just picked up 3.
Okay.
One for Benny to throw into the video, and then.
I was down there this morning. He said 2 or 3. I jumped up.
So they gave me 3, and then she's gonna make up 200 after. Really? Yeah, but we don't want to try to avoid
Hey,
that.
it's July 1st? That high? Yes. July 1st. All right, well, that's right on top of the Do another 2x4.
That's the thing. If you look at the eyepiece, that's the last scene that was shot. Did you see it?
Oh, yeah.
We need that John up there. Billy.
60 pigeons are being released today to signify the 57 Massachusetts men who are still being held in Southeast Asia and whose families and loved ones await their return. One pigeon signifies the men from Rhode Island who have not returned home. The sister of Sergeant Louis C. Walton, Maureen Martin, will be here tomorrow to close our 24-hour ceremony for us with a poem. One pigeon will be released to signify the men from Korea, World War II, and all POW and MIAs who are still unaccounted for. The last pigeon will be for the 7 men who we will honor tomorrow at 10 o'clock when the dedication begins for the Leominster Vietnam Veterans Memorial. We ask anyone who wishes to stay with us during the 24 hours to please do so. We expect family members of the 7 men and also some family members of the Massachusetts men to appear during this time. Candles are available later at dusk for anyone wishing to stand and hold one. Please join us with your thoughts and prayers and help us to pay tribute to all these brave men.
Okay? You ready now? Look straight up.
Right up, Felix. Good job.
Campbell, the new one, the famous guy.
Well, remember where I worked, a lot of the planes in was called all around that. That was like, you see a side tree, bring me out coffee, never knowing you're not even working on.
I'll give you a call.
And she's still around. Yeah, well, that's what I heard. I heard that.
Yeah.
Are you your wife then? This is his father.
So what happened is, I've got a picture of you. I took, remember the flyer, the Leominster flyer that said about the memorial? You know, the big gray paper. I took it down to the wall and I put it up to David's name. And I took a picture of him. Okay, I didn't say, and then I gave you the rubbing too, but all right, okay. But I was watching the tape the other day.
I grabbed my keys out of my pocket and I must have flew off in.
I was just going to say, it gets, at least it'll get in. At least it'll get in.
Center at 9:45, right? The reading of the names of the Massachusetts missing in action from Vietnam. There's 57 names. We'll also read the Rhode Island list of MIAs, and there are 8 of those. Wayne C. Allen, Tewksbury. Alan J. Avery, Auburn. Bruce R. Baxter, Lowell. Eugene P. Berezik, Webster. Kenneth A. Berraby, Monson. Charles L. Bellafoci, Quincy. Warren W. Bowles, Marblehead Neck. John A. Baronsky, Ware. Russell P. Bott, Worcester. Deverton C. Cochran, Brookline. Alan P. Collymore, Worcester. Joseph F. Cook, Foxborough. Paul S. Shawanka, Stoughton. Paul N. Donato, Boston. Joseph P. Dunn, Hull. John S. Earl, Westfield. Robert M. Elliott, Springfield. Joseph E. Fitzgerald, Northbridge. William D. Frawley, Brockton. Frederick T. Garside, Plymouth. Roger C. Gahn, Belchertown. Richard C. Graves, Sunderland. Joseph G. Greenleaf, West Newton. Richard K. Harper, Burlington. Robert D. Hauer, Brookline. John R. Henn, Jr., Sutton. Henry H. Herron, Jr., West Springfield. David U. Holmes, Belmont. Robert A. Holt, Reading. Leonard L. Kaiser, Holyoke. Daniel M. Kelly, Dorchester. Everett O. Kerr, Belmont. Paul C. King, Jr., Waltham. Gerald F. Kingsman, Foxborough. Michael J. Costigan, Worcester. John M. Lever, Jr., Arlington. Hubert B. Lougheed, Middleborough. Henry E. McCann, Marblehead. James A. Magnuson, Jr., Nahant. Kenneth D. McKinney, Auburn. Arthur B. McGonklin, Roxbury. Charlton P. Miller, Jr., Melrose. Richard G. Morin, Tewksbury. William F. Mullen, Brockton. John F. Overlock, Springfield. John R. Panya, Jr., Vineyard Haven. Edward F. Rogers, Roslindale. James Sassoni, Norwood. William S. Smith, Middleborough. Howard D. Stevenson, Bolton. Martin J. Sullivan, Lawrence. Robert J. Todd, Northeastern. O'Brien Walker Jr., Boston. Craig H. Waterman, Rehoboth. David J. Wax, Brookline. Monex Wetz, Roxbury. Blair C. Rye, Auburndale. In the Rhode Island, Sergeant First Class Lewis C. Walton, Cranston, Rhode Island. James M. Ray, Woonsocket. George H. Jordanis, Central Falls. Charles E. Capoletti, Providence. Lauren N. Donahue, Providence. Curtis A. Eaton, Wakefield. Kenneth Brad Goff Jr., Warren. Frederick M. Miller, Cranston, Rhode Island. Orland J. Pender Jr., I'm not really sure what it is. Edward P. Shaw, Cranston. That's the reading of the name.
Who are family members sitting in chairs in front of the podium, those who are guest speakers in the chairs behind the podium, and the honored guests from the general public.
Stay here with us.
Taking right now?
I think so. It might be one.
No, we're gonna go get him.
Oh, man. Where are you going to wait
Would the escorts at this time ensure that all Gold Star mothers receive a rose? Come forward.
You sure, Russ?
Ladies and gentlemen, before we start, I'd like to say that the families will be in front of me in the seating area. Guest speakers are behind the podium, and the general public and veterans should. Welcome to everyone, and thank you for this lovely morning we can have together. We are ending a 24-hour vigil at this time that started yesterday morning when the monument was placed. This vigil was to honor POWs, MIAs, and our fallen brothers. At this time, I'd like to introduce Helen Fullhart, Vigil Coordinator, member of the Vietnam Veterans Board of Directors. Helen.
I'd like to introduce my very good friend who's come here from Narragansett, Rhode Island, along with her husband Bob and her daughter Kathy. Maureen Martin is the sister of Sergeant First Class Louis C. Walton, who's been missing in action since May of 1971 from Laos.
Maureen has come here to close our 24-hour vigil and to read a poem for us.
Sorry.
As Helen said, my brother is Sergeant Lewis Clark Walton, U.S. Army Special Forces. Missing in action May 10th, 1971. He is alive. They intercepted a radio message and said that he had been captured and marched north to Hanoi. A returning POW in 1973 said he had contact with 2 prisoners that knew my brother, that said he was alive and in good physical condition. That was 1973. He has not come home, and that is why these vigils are so important. So the hopes of them coming home will not flicker out. I have a poem that I like to read to you because every day these words run through my mind. I've made a decided effort and a concerned just not to memorize this poem, and you'll have to forgive me why I had to go over and get it from my purse. The words are what I believe that my brother and the other POWs are saying. It's called Come For Me. 20 years in the jungle has taken its toll on me. I'm not the same man I used to be. But one thing is consistent. I long to be free. Please, Mr. President, come for me. The scars of my torture will never go away. I'm 50 pounds lighter. My hair is now gray. But their shackles can't chain the freedom in me. Please, lawmakers, come for me. If my family believed there's a chance I'd survive, they'd fight to their deaths to prove I'm alive. I last saw my son when he was just 3. Please, loving family, come for me. Some captors say you don't know that I'm here, that I'm doomed to this prison year after year. God bless America, land of the free. Please, friends and parishioners, come for me. Other captors say you know that I'm here, but refuse to believe the evidence that is so clear. Will some caring citizens hear my plea? Please, fellow countrymen, come for me. I'll have faith in my country to my dying day. I'll never believe you could leave me this way. My country, 'tis of thee. Please, please, America, come for me.
Thank you very much. The families can be seated now if they desire, and the guest speakers, so that the people behind can see a little easier in the back. I'd like to welcome you to the dedication today of the Leominster Vietnam Veterans Memorial. I am Richard Early, President and Chairman of the Board of the Vietnam Veterans of America, Firebase 116. I served with the Army Security Agency 1960-1971, in-country Vietnam 1969. This is more than a memorial or a dedication service. It's a celebration and a reformation of the spirit of the 7 young men who have brought us together today. Their spirit lives on. These 7 have given us the survivors, the strength and the inspiration to continue. And in their name, we meet here today. Their spirit lives on. The power of the living spirit of George, Franklin, David, Thomas, Brian, Wayne, and John has brought us together this morning. And in their spirit, we'd like to welcome our honored guests who have made this day a reality. First and foremost, this day is for you, the families. Next, to the Vietnam veterans, we'd like to say thank you, and we appreciate it. And also to the members of the community who have come together with the veterans and the families to make this day possible. And the hard work has paid off, as demonstrated today. Our invocation will be presented to us now by Father Richard Hannigan, pastor of St. Bernard's Parish in Fitchburg, Massachusetts. Father Hannigan.
O great and eternal God, as we dedicate this monument this morning, we give thanks for men who are willing to give their lives for what they believed in, that their sacrifice would set us free. For them, we ask for the peace that only you can give. We also pray that strength and courage be given to all who work for a world of reason and understanding, that the good that lies in every man's heart may day by day be magnified, that men will come to see more clearly not that which divides them, but that which unites them, that each hour may bring us to a final victory, not of nation over nation, but of man over his own evils and weaknesses. That the blessings of peace be ours, the peace to build and grow, to live in harmony and sympathy with others, and to plan for the future with confidence. Amen.
Would everyone please rise at this time for our national anthem, which will be sung to us by Stephen McConnell.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
You can be seated again. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to introduce at this time our speakers, the first of which I'd like to introduce, the Honorable Richard Neal, member of the United States Congress. Mr. Neal.
Reverend clergy, Your Honor, Mayor Perla, and Representative Antonioni, families of the deceased Vietnam veterans and veterans of all wars and friends. It's a pleasure for me today to come to Leominster, Massachusetts as your congressman and to extend greetings from the United States of America on this solemn occasion. But we ought to reflect for just a couple of moments on the difficulty of that period of time in all of our lives. Who can move to this monument without recalling the names of Da Nang and Pleiku and the demilitarized zone, and the Secretary of Defense at the time returning regularly to say that all we needed was another 100,000 troops and another $500 million. And as we arrive here in Leominster today with the families of the deceased, we're reminded that there were 58,000 young Americans who lost their lives in Vietnam during a period of time that was perhaps the most difficult domestically in America since the Civil War. And yet the community of Leominster takes the time today to honor the fallen, to honor those who so gallantly made this enormous sacrifice. We can take satisfaction from that sacrifice today, however, and we can acknowledge that there isn't anybody here who might have believed 1 year ago that there'd be a non-communist government in Poland, that the Berlin Wall would be coming down, and that there'd be a modicum of democracy today in the Soviet Union. That's testimony to the commitment of the young men whose names will be carefully etched on this memorial today. What they did in the name of America was honorable, and the tradition that they've passed on and the legacy that we recall today indeed was most honorable. It's a pleasure for me to come here today, join with you, the citizens of Leominster, Massachusetts, in honoring those who have passed that supreme test, and to say a simple but profound thanks from the United States of America.
Thank you, Congressman. Next, it's my pleasure to present Mr. Robert A. Antonio, representative to the Massachusetts House of Representatives.
Thank you, Mr. Early. Families of our deceased Leominster heroes, Vietnam veterans, Congressman Neal, Mayor Perla, elected officials here in Leominster, Vietnam veterans and friends. On this beautiful Leominster morning, earlier today, I considered for a moment an analogy or a symbol that might help me express at this moment the sacrifices that were made by the individuals whose names are emblazoned on the monument soon to be uncovered before us, and by those many Vietnam veterans that answered the call of their nation at a time when it wasn't the popular thing to do. And in thinking, I considered the role of a parent. There are many parents here in the audience. I'm not one. I haven't been blessed with that treasure yet. Hopefully someday I will. But I'm one of 6 children, and I know something about the sacrifices my parents made. And this morning, I'd like to talk about 3 of those sacrifices that I think apply quite well to the sacrifices made by the people we're honoring today. What does a parent do? First, a parent teaches. And we've all learned something this morning and in the last 20 years.
about the need to sacrifice for the better of all of us. And we couldn't gather on a common like this in many other countries in the world, even today. And the 7 individuals that gave their lives for Leominster taught us something about that sacrifice, that ultimate sacrifice. They taught us that something is worth fighting for, something is worth loving for, and that's this community, and that's this nation. The other thing that a parent does, a parent consoles, a parent loves. We went through a very difficult time during the Vietnam era. I was just a teenager at the time, or probably a little bit younger. I probably don't remember quite as well as you, certainly those Vietnam veterans that are here, the anxiety that this nation felt over that unpopular war. And we're still healing from those wounds that were opened during that time. And gathering as we do today, that healing process has continued. The Vietnam veterans that are here today, and most especially our young Leominster heroes, are continuing that process. They're telling us that, well, I guess it's all right. We made some very serious mistakes, but we're continuing as a nation and as a city. And that's the important thing to learn, I think. And most especially what a parent does, a parent protects the little girl, little boy that skins her knee, protects the older child that goes through a difficult time, a divorce, or the loss of a loved one. A parent, a mother, and a father is always there. Well, Vietnam veterans were there. Certainly our young Leominster heroes, while they were there. We know that all too well. We've learned a great deal from our parents, and we've learned a great deal from the veterans and the people that we're honoring today. This is a celebration, as Mr. Early indicated earlier. A touch of sadness, perhaps, but it's a celebration. This is what America, and this is what Leominster is all about. The heart of this community and of this nation is beating right now, right here on Monument Square. I can feel it, and I think everyone here can feel it. The beating of that heart brought you here today. And that's wonderful. That's what this city is all about. To those young Leominster heroes and those Vietnam veterans, thank you. Thank you all so very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Neal. Our next speaker served with the United States Marines 1951 to 54. He is currently the Leominster Veterans Agent and a member of the Memorial Committee, Mr. James Lanciani. Jim?
Mr. Early, Congressman Neal, Mayor Perla, state dignitaries, Leominster officials, Gold Star mothers, veterans, ladies and gentlemen, families of the deceased Vietnam veterans. Today it gives me great honor to be here with you and to take part in this service, not only as the Veteran Services Officer, but as a veteran and being accepted by the veterans and asked to participate in the services. A little less than a year ago, a Vietnam veteran came to my office and asked me 2 questions. What would I think of a memorial for the 7 Vietnam veterans who have passed away, and would I be willing to serve on that committee? I consider it a great honor and a privilege. And today I wish to extend my thanks to the Vietnam veterans and to each and every one of you who contributed to make this day a success. I would like to especially thank my veteran brothers, the relatives and families of the deceased veterans. I appreciate the honor and the humble dignity to be here today to take part with you as a member of your family. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Next, a longtime friend of the Vietnam veterans, a strong supporter, and always there when we needed some help, Mr. Al Broussard.
Thank you. This is a tough one today. Because about 9 months ago, a group of young men came to the Leominster City Hall and asked for some help. What they said to the city council and to the mayor is that we want a little piece of land here in the common to build a memorial to remember the 7 young men who gave their lives for Vietnam. I was so pleased with this because they were so humble and they seemed to be outcast and put aside by so much of the public in the 60s and the 70s, then again in the 80s. From the very beginning in 1982 when I became a city councilor, I fought for the veterans of the Vietnam era to have their place here in the veterans' quarters. I supported everything that they stood for because they were certainly being denied by the citizens around this country. Well, today, I assure you all, welcome home, veterans. Today is your day. It's your parade. This memorial is a heart-touching thing because people gave quarters, dollars, and some gave thousands. I personally, with Dick Fontaine at the barber shop, started raising funds in the city council. The first night that they came down, I donated $100 and raised over $3,000 to make this a reality. And the 15,000 or more, believe me, is the greatest investment the city ever made to any veterans memorial, because we all own a piece of that rock. The piece of that rock we can touch and say, these men gave their lives, and we say thank you. This is not a government, a state, or city function. It was all done from the heart by a bunch of great guys. Today, I say thank you. I'm glad to see the families here. In my heart, we all love you, and thank you for giving us great sons.
To introduce to you a Gold Star mother who's been a great friend of the veterans in the area. Mrs. Helen Hill, mother of our fallen brother David Allen Hill, whose birthday I share. Mrs. Hill.
I want to thank everybody for coming because it shows you care. And I'd like to read this for the fallen boys, our sons, for the POWs and the MIAs. And it says, you've got to care. Those were the last words of a young American soldier dying in Vietnam. He had interposed his own body between the force of a bursting enemy grenade and the ground of soldiers it was intended to destroy. You've got to care to do a thing like that. Care for whom? Was it only for those fellow soldiers near him? Or was it his sacrifice offered to help ensure that generations yet unborn might have a chance to know peace and freedom? Care for what? Were there unspoken thoughts within his heart of the great God-given heritage and God-imposed responsibility which is America? Were there budding dreams of helping to build a better world, a world where love one another is practiced and not quoted? Probably Milton L. Olive would not have found words to answer those questions. He didn't need to. He said it in all those 4 painfully whispered words. You've got to care. He was only a boy, just reaching for the threshold of manhood. What could his sacrifice mean to the world? Only the years will tell who can say his dream died with him. Who knows but one who lives because of his sacrifice may lead his country back to God and thus to peace. And for the boys, the 7 boys we honor today with this memorial, they also cared. They loved their country and honored their flag and loved their families they left behind. And because they cared and sacrificed their lives that we may have that kind of peace in our country, don't let them have died in vain. Take time to care. Take care of your families. Take care of your neighbors. Love your children. Remember, our children are our future and our heritage. Our tears fall not from our eyes, they drop from our hearts silently, even while we smile, so you don't see us weeping. Because they cared, and I get so emotional because I'm speaking of our Vietnam veterans of Fire Base 16. They are just so wonderful and supportive. I've only known them for maybe a year, been involved with them, and they are a tribute to our fallen sons. They are men to be proud of. They have worked long and hard for their dreams to come true. This memorial also is a tribute to them for their love of their country and their fallen comrades. Also to their wives who have supported them, loved them, and worked side by side with them. God bless all of you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Hell. We certainly appreciate it. At this time, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker, who served with the 1st Platoon, K Company, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, 1st Marine Division, as a rifleman and machine gunner in Vietnam, 1966-67. He's a member of the Vietnam Veterans of America Board of Directors and is currently the POW MIA Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, our keynote speaker, Mr. Paul Melboff.
Thank you. I'd like to dedicate the reading of this speech to 1st Platoon, K Company, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, 1st Marine Division, especially those killed in action on June 15, 1967. Don LaHuda, Missoula, Montana. Jerry Forehand, Orlando, Florida. Ernesto Sanchez Jr., Olton, Texas. Willie Davis Jr., Chicago, Illinois. And John Holman, who died on this day, June 16, 21 years ago today. Welcome, honored guests and families. To the families of those deceased, although we cannot calculate the depths of your loss, we certainly share your sorrow. You see, as we stood side by side over there, your loved ones became our loved ones, and with them was lost a part of all of us. To the families of the physically and spiritually wounded, in many instances you've been forced to make some severe, sometimes devastating adjustments to your lives for damage incurred to your spouse, child, or brother, or sister in Vietnam. I hope that today will mark the beginning of the end of the trials you endure. The Leominster Vietnam Memorial came about by a visit to a half-size replica of the Vietnam Memorial that visited Fitchburg last year. Ralph Dinabetto and Dan Joseph, members of Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 116, brought forth the idea and the Memorial Trust was started. From the 50 cents that was given from a donor in Winchendon to over 300 plus donations, both large and small, goals were set and accomplished. Thank you, Leominster, for a job well done. My brothers and my sisters, I will be remembered one day, not for anything I say, nor for anything I do, but because I was with you one day when it mattered, and we stood together in the sun. A short time ago, I visited Albert and Helen Hill, Gold Star parents, in their home to remember and reminisce the tragic day when the knock came at the door at 7 o'clock in the morning, and a chaplain came in to break the sad news of the death of their son, David Allen. How uncomfortable the chaplain was, because it was the first time with this duty. As word spread of David's death, the Leominster community and close friends came to help the Hills bear their grief. The minister, Reverend Keith Maynard, who came late at night with flowers and kept in touch with them when needed. How David's last letter helped prepare them for the unthinkable. Quote, I know in my heart the end is near. My God has not let me down yet, and with his help, when I finish here, I can hear himself say, well done, good and faithful servant. You have fought the good fight. Just recently, Albert and Helen put together a scrapbook of David's accomplishments in school and in the community of Leominster, the city he loved so dearly. Mr. Hill reached over and touched my hand and asked me where I was 20 years ago when he needed me. And I answered Mr. Hill, I probably wouldn't have been much good to you 20 years ago, because it has taken me 20 years to sort things out for myself, and I'm still not finished. How important is this monument to the Hill family, the Davises, the Hazards, the Johnsons, the O'Neills, the Macmillans, and the Holmans? Ask them when you get a chance. The answers may surprise you. Contrary to popular views of some of the country's protected intellectuals, Vietnam veterans and their families are real people too. Today, as we pay tribute to our fallen brothers, we must also reflect on the living, because a terrible price has been paid in emotional and physical suffering that is still being tallied even today. We call upon our elected officials to not forget the veterans of all wars and the services they need to cope with their lives. Please do not abandon them and future veterans. To the over 2,300 missing in action and prisoners of war in Southeast Asia and past wars, this senseless neglect is long overdue for a just ending. The following poem was written by Steve Mason, a Vietnam combat infantryman. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. is the veterans' solemn pledge to remember, and so is Leominster's wall. There is one other wall, of course, one we never speak of, one we never see, one which separates memory from madness, in a place no one offers flowers, the wall within. We permit no visitors. In the names of all the other casualties of the Vietnam War, our loved ones, the ones the Pentagon didn't put in uniform but died anyway, some because they stopped being who they always were, just as truly as they found another way to breathe. Others because they did die, honest to God casualties of the Vietnam War, because they lost the will to breathe at all. The wall within adds up the true cost of war. And what about you vets who came home to your wife and kids only to divorce her because there wasn't anybody else to be angry at? How many times have you long-distance fathers dropped into the slot to hear how another man was raising your children? Yeah, I can hear you hollering. Put it on the wall. Put it on the wall. Damn right it's on the wall. And you remember how that came down. You told a 3-year-old his daddy loved him and his mommy loved him, and nothing would ever change that, but it did anyway. But not because you didn't love him enough, but because you loved him too much to be a part-time daddy. And you couldn't explain that to him because you couldn't explain it to you. What the hell? I mean, who were you? Spinoza? You came home a 22-year-old machine gunner. You did the best you could. Put that on the wall. If you and I were men of common conscience, we might agree on a collective dedication to our walls within. As for me, they could all read, "This wall is dedicated to mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, wives, husbands, sons, daughters, lovers, friends, and most of all, dreams of the men and women who risked it all in Vietnam while you continued to lose them during and after the war, with lesser chance than they for a parade and no chance at all for an explanation. We were the best, you and I. Welcome home. Welcome home.
Thank you, Paul. And now we'll proceed on to our unveiling ceremony. First, I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Greg Hathaway, who was a designer and oversaw the construction of this lasting tribute to our fallen brothers. Greg?
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Invited guests, Vietnam veterans. Like Jim was saying, about 9 months ago, the Vietnam Memorial Committee walked into my office. Dan Josephs and Ralph. They asked me to start the proceedings to begin to design and fabricate a Vietnam memorial. One of the stipulations was that the granite had to be that of what we call the wall. I said, well, geez, I'm not sure if I know where that granite comes from, but we'll dig into it and find it. We found it. It comes from Cherry Hill, Pennsylvania. The other stipulation was that the lettering, which was developed for the Vietnam Wall, was what they call an etching process. That was a prerequisite for putting on the inscriptions. Well, we got that all settled and knew we could get the granite. Dan said to me, okay, now what are we going to do for a design? So they submitted some proposals and some pictures. We came up with a design, submitted it to the committee. They held it for about 2 or 3 months, came in and said, okay, go with it. About 3 or 4 months after that, we made a few minor changes, added some symbolism to the front, and we decided to go with an etching of a scene depicting the Vietnam area. It was indeed a privilege and an honor for our company to be involved in the making of the memorial. The history of our company dates back to 1901, and all of the monuments on this common were produced by our company. At this time, I'd like to turn over the papers of ownership to Dan Joseph. Dan?
And now for the unveiling of the monument. I'd like to call your attention to the monument now. And Mr. Hazard Tucker, who served with the 1st Battalion, 12th Marine Regiment, 3rd Marine Division in Vietnam. And Mr. Don Wakefield, who served as a demolition specialist with the 18 Engineers from June '66 until 1968 in the Republic of Vietnam. The roll call to honor for these young men will be presented by Mr. Ralph Sacramone, who served 2 tours with the Navy Seabees 1967-68, and Mr. Don Toohey, who performed recon duty with the 2nd Battalion, 12th Infantry, 25th Infantry Division, 1970-1971. Ralph and Don.
Good morning, everyone. As Don and I read the roll, we ask that the families and/or their veteran chaperones go to the stone, place a flower, or just have a look for yourself. We will provide plenty of time for anyone else who wishes to place a flower after that. Don, you want to start?
Lieutenant George Edward O'Neill, Sea Battery, 1st Battalion, 8th Artillery, 25th Infantry Division. Killed in action September 28, 1966. Lieutenant O'Neill was the oldest Leominster casualty.
Lance Corporal Franklin George Hazard, United States Marine Corps, killed in action May 18, 1967. Lance Corporal Hazard died 3 days short of his 21st birthday.
Specialist 4th Class Byron Stephen Johnson, 2nd Battalion, 18th Infantry, 1st Infantry Division. Killed in action January 19, 1968. Specialist 4th Class Johnson was 20 years old.
Marine Corps, killed in action March 6, 1968. Lance Corporal McMillan was the youngest Leominster casualty at 19 years old.
Private 1st Class David Allen Hill, 3rd Battalion, 1st Infantry, 11th Infantry Brigade, Americal Division. Killed in action February 13, 1969. Private 1st Class Hill was 22 years old. Chief Warrant Officer John Michael Holman, 25th Aviation Battalion, 25th Infantry Division. Killed in action May 31st, 1969. Chief Warrant Officer Holman was 22 years old and on his second tour in country.
Specialist 4th Class Wayne Robert Davis, E Battery, 82nd Artillery, 1st Air Cavalry Division. Killed in action August 22nd, 1970. Specialist 4th Class Davis was 20 years old and had served in Vietnam only 13 days.
To the rest of you who'd like to lay a flower, if those on that side of us would go to the sidewalk, and those behind me come to the sidewalk and come around that way, I think that'd be about the easiest way to do it without getting stampeded. Boy Scout Troop 212 from Lady of the Lake Church and their leader, Ken Lavoie, will place a wreath. This will be beginning All I Ask of You by Joyful Noise. just a few things to say. Being a native of Leominster and working the last 8 months or so with this committee, monument has a very special meaning to me. I'd like to take this time to thank you all for your support, for being here with us today. To the relatives of the 7 names on our wall, I have a 19-year-old son. I can't, in my wildest dreams, imagine the pain you must have suffered. You showed me what real strength and character is. I thank you for that. To each and every Vietnam vet here today, I have a wish. May the God that guided us through that hell and back home again continue to guide us and give us the strength and character as we see here today to educate our sons and daughters to the ends that they will never have the need for a memorial like this in their generation. For the 7 men carved in granite here, I'd just like to say, welcome home, boys.
My friends, the spirit of the 7 brothers lives on and has brought us here together today. At this time, we'd like to present the memorial to the citizens of Leominster. The co-chairman of the Memorial Committee, Mr. Dan Joseph, who served with the 98th Lem Company, 1st Logistic Group's 86 Maintenance Division in 69-70, and Mr. Ron Frieda, who served as an Army medic with the 1st Infantry Division Headquarters Company in 1968 Republic of Vietnam. Dan and Ron.
I would like to thank Vietnam Veterans Chapter 116. When we went there last September and asked if we could do this, and they fell behind us 150%. And all the people who donated and helped, the Leominster community, as far as Maine and Florida, who chipped in, and the 20 people who was on our committee who worked so hard to make this day a reality. Thank you.
Family of veterans, honored guests, friends of Leominster. I'm sure I speak for all veterans when I say that there are no words to describe the sense of accomplishment, sense of satisfaction, and the sense of peace it gives me to see this day. Last year when we began putting ideas together to fund the project, none of us expected the overwhelming support we received that people showed us. The Leominster teenager who left here to fight in Vietnam some 20 years later has taken this support as an expression of gratitude and understanding for the Leominster men who fought and died in Vietnam. And now with gratitude, I would like to present this monument to the city and the people of Leominster. Thank you. Mayor Perla.
Dan, Ron, members of the Vietnam veterans, families, friends, and Leominster citizens. This is perhaps my proudest moment as mayor of the city, and I tell you with great honor and privilege, I accept this on behalf of the citizens of Leominster. As I prepare for my remarks this morning, I journeyed back to the Vietnam era. It was a difficult and painful journey as I remembered the division and struggle that we as individuals and as a country confronted. For this war transcended 3 presidents, questioned Americans' foreign policy, challenged our commitment to the American soldier and to our country's ideals. And this war in Vietnam created a generation of new thought. Our country had not faced such division perhaps since the Civil War. It was truly a divisive period in our nation's history. Today, however, on this beautiful Saturday morning in June, we in our community are signaling a new era. As we dedicate this memorial to our Vietnam heroes, it enables us to heal those old wounds, and most importantly, say thank you to those men and women of the Vietnam War who were willing to sacrifice their lives for our country. We too frequently take these heroes for granted, but this beautiful memorial will act as a daily reminder of their personal sacrifice. I can vividly recall my first visitation to the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C., and the sense of grief and loss that I felt as I stood before the seas of name inscribed on that monument. For me, it was truly a living memorial, as it brought back the memories of my youth. For it was this war that I, at the age of 15, was led to my vocation, public service. And as I stand before this memorial today, it reminds me of the true meaning of public service. It is my hope that this war teaches us an important lesson, to never again respond indifferently to our American heroes. But most importantly, let us pray today as we stand before this beautiful memorial and pay tribute to Specialist 4th Class Rain Robert Davis, Lance Corporal Franklin George Hazard, Private 1st Class David Allen Hill, Specialist 4th Class Byron Stephen Johnson, 2nd Lieutenant George Edward O'Neill, Lance Corporal Thomas McMillan, Chief Warrant Officer John M. Homan, that we will never again have to add new names to a monument as a consequence of war. Let our prayer for peace include a special thought for the missing in action and their families, and for those that have survived the war, so that they may find internal peace. As this Vietnam Memorial is a product of so many people's dreams and hard work, let it forever be a symbol of unity, thankfulness, and peace in our community of Leominster. Thank you.
At this point, I'd like to recognize joining us today the Veterans Emeritus, the ex-POWs of Central Massachusetts who are kind enough to come here today. Thank you. Please turn your attention now toward the flagpole as the combined Leominster Civil Defense and Leominster Police Honor Guards will provide us with a 21-gun salute to our fallen seven. Ladies and gentlemen, Taps and Colors by John Hemingway and Ron Concordio. We wish to thank all of you who have made this day a reality, and to George, Franklin, David, Thomas, Byron, Wayne, and John. Your spirit guides us stronger today than ever. And we'd like to thank you, especially the families. We honor, respect, and appreciate your kindness for sharing this special day with us. Their spirit lives on. Directly after the program today, there will be a reception at the Veterans Center up West Street. Dinner will be served at noon. I'd also like you to kindly leave all the small flags in the area, because we have to return them. Please stand now as we conclude this dedication of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, and join us with Stephen McConnell and the Joyful Noise as we sing God Bless America.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you to everyone who helped and all the guests. We certainly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Cheryl, I lost my husband. This is nothing new. I just came in like a half an hour ago from Boston. It's met in California. This is the
You guys had some good footage there, huh? Of her and Father Mason and everything. That was good. Oh, really?
I got the vigil last night.
Yeah, good. Who hired you? Are you just volunteering for?
Yeah, I did it for the whole.
Oh, good.
I'm going to make copies every day.
That would be really valuable to them, I'm sure. That's nice.
I got a card.
Uh-huh. Yeah, actually, because I'm working for the Fitchburg Sun Office. Any reason they might want Thank you. No, here it's good. Doing it for
Today's one of the few days I was talking about
Hey,